to the Rockstep of Chicago, Illinois, non-profit home video and artwork creations. In this particular video, I want you to check out my Nibiru Temple Mount Alien Facebook page, where I discovered that when we draw 12 horizontal lines across the African continent land surface from south to north, and look at it with satellite imagery, we will see the African tribes living in each of the 12 horizontal land surface lines. This comes the term in which I call the 12 African continent tribes, in which the SPHINX 11, in which I am showing in the video, actually ruled over in ancient Judea and Jerusalem. Now, in the 10th line, you're going to see Ethiopia, and in the 11th line, you're going to see Egypt. Okay, GIZA, where the Isaiah 1919 Giza pyramids are. But way before we zoom into the Isaiah 1919 Giza pyramids, as we area view the 12 African continent lines from outer space. Well, if we look at the Northeast African continent land surface area, what we are looking at is a yellow desert triangular sand area, in which represent a royal Egyptian headdress. In the center of this royal desert triangular land surface area, we see a U-shaped face representing the African Sphinx, in which we now see face in front of the Isaiah 1919 Giza pyramid. Now remember, the 400-year-old mistranslated King James Bible illegally changed the 12 African continent tribes into the 12 sons of Jacob. This occurred 400 years ago in 1611 by the King James of England, when he appointed 72 Greek and Hebrew scholars to fly to the 11th and 12th area-viewed African continent land surface lines. And so, when they studied the Islamic Aramaic Dead Sea Scrolls, in which turns out to be the language of the area-viewed African continent Sphinx of ancient Judea and Jerusalem, they mistranslated the role of the African continent Sphinx as it relates to him ruling over the book of Genesis, 49th chapter and 8th verse, as the line of the tribe of Judah over all of the 12 African continent tribes. Now remember, it says, all thy father's children shall bow down unto thee. So whose father's children are we talking about? So if we go back to the book of Psalms, 105th chapter and 23rd verse, and compare it to Ezra, 1st chapter 3rd verse, the Ezra 1st chapter 3rd verse states, let us go to Jerusalem, which is located in the land of Judah, and build the house of the Lord God of Jacob. Now remember, I must remind you that the European Gentile nations, in which started the early United States government as English pilgrims and trading ships in black hats, coats, tights, and shoes. This is the same dress code in which we see the modern European-faced Israelites of the 10 horns of Daniel, as they are seen as European-faced Israelites praying at the Western Wall. Now remember, we're talking about an African continent, a geographic 12th land surface line where Jerusalem is located, in which the European Gentile nation, that's English pilgrims that started the early United States government in black hats, coats, and tights, they took that land over, which led up to the Catholics in Europe wearing the royal Egyptian headdress as nuns, the Catholic women. So as we go back to the 1609 transatlantic slave trade, and which was brought about by theological racism of the European Gentile nations against the normal-headed African continent, area-viewed land of Judea and Jerusalem. So this would be the Sphinx of the Bible, in which was denied theological racism by the European Gentile nations. Particularly, we're talking about the dress code of the English pilgrims that started the early United States government as they got off of trading boats that came from Europe and started the early 13 colonies in America. Now remember, the 1492 European from named Christopher Columbus, that in ships arrived from Europe and so-called discovered America, Indians was on horseback shooting bow and arrows in Canada. So as this European Gentile nation took over America, and they also took over the 11th and 12th area-viewed African continent geographic Holy Land surface line, where Judea and Jerusalem is located. This brings us back full circle to the book of Esther, first chapter, 3rd verse, which says, "Let us go up to Jerusalem, which is located in the land of Judah, and build a house of the Lord God of Jacob." Now, this video deals with the aerial view geographic land surface face image of ancient Judaism. As we see in the 11th aerial view African continent land surface line, we see this desert yellow royal Egyptian headdress as a triangle. Now, that has a U-shaped dark face in the center, which represents the African things of ancient GIZA, Gaza, Palestine, Ethiopia, and Jerusalem, in which the European Gentile nation that started the early United States government denied in theological racism. As the 72 Greek and Hebrew scholars flew to the 11th and 12th aerial view African continent geographic land surface line where Judea and Jerusalem is located, they started studying the Qumran cave Islamic Aramaic Dead Sea Scrolls, in which was the language of the Ethiopian children of Judea and Jerusalem. So as we look at this great archaeological and theological discovery, in which Laurel Smith of Chicago, Illinois, nonprofit home video and artworks creations has made, we must come to the conclusion that the aerial viewed African continent, Sphinx 11th face, has a second Sphinx 1 face. So this is the like if you stand in front of the African Sphinx, in front of the Isaiah 1919 North African Egyptian pyramids, and you take a picture of his face with your cell phone, right? You're looking at a U-shaped face within the real Egyptian headdress. But if you draw a line from the left and right side of the headdress up till they meet, you're going to see a triangle. So then when we go back to the aerial viewed African continent as seen with space or with satellite imagery, we're looking at the northeast African continent land surface line where Judea and Jerusalem is located. Now, Jerusalem, as the first chapter, 3rd verse, is in the 12th horizontal land surface line. Now, you're falling off of the North African continent into the water. Okay, so it looks like a V-shaped piece of land where Jerusalem is at the top of the V-shaped piece of land. Now, Judea is in the 11th horizontal line of the aerial view northeast African continent, yellow desert triangular sand area.